And Dan is going to introduce the next segment, which is a very special award, by playing a song that has special meaning to our next honoree, Maryam Namazie, because she is the co-host of a very innovative, progressive TV show that is piped over to Persia, to Iran, her home country. It's in both Persian and English. It's free-thinking and it's feminist, and it's called Bread and Roses, and it's named after a poem that turned into this very beautiful song. It was really my mother's favorite song, the one she most requested Dan to play. So it's in honor of her, in honor of Maryam, and Katha Pollitt.
As we go marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are in the struggle, and together we shall win. Small art and love and beauty, their trudging spirits knew. But it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient call for bread. Small art and love and beauty, their trudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, we're standing proud and tall. The beauty of the women is the glory of us all. No more the drudge or idler, ten that toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glory. Bread and roses, bread and roses, bread and roses.
So, a very special person, Hank Zumak, come on up, Hank, who is one of our activist litigants, successful litigants in the past against Ten Commandment in La Crosse, Wisconsin, is going to come and say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you. How's this for a hard, tough act to follow, huh? Over the centuries and continuing into today, I believe that the greatest harm to societies has been imposed by those who hold the irrational beliefs of fundamentalist religious teachings. Those individuals who had the courage to confront these beliefs have been punished, and their rational thinking and actions have been among the most severely suppressed and persecuted. I believe that those few who speak out deserve our greatest respect and admiration. And after that presentation, one more time for the freedom. Because of the background that I just expressed, last year I started the Henry H. Zumak Award for Freedom from Religious Fundamentalism and made the Freedom from Religion Foundation the recipient. A small detail perhaps is I am not financially all that secure. I did contribute $100,000. Annie Lurie and I arranged to put into a broad-based mutual fund and $10,000, and that's the basis of the financial basis of the Zumak Award. I am. Anybody here who would like to contribute also to that fund is welcome to do so. I am delighted that the Freedom from Religion Foundation also agreed to permanently administer the award going on into the future. You may have noticed I've got some gray hair here. You are about to see the excellent results of their decisions regarding the administration of the Zumach Award. Thank you.
So our first honoree of this evening, Maryam Namazie, is an Iranian-born writer and activist, and she lives in London, so she flew here from there to be here. She has a very lengthy resume as a free-thinking feminist rabble-rouser, and the Islamic regime of Iran has called Maryam Namazie immoral and corrupt, and once did an expose on her entitled, "Meet This Anti-Religion Woman." She's spokesperson for Fitnah, the movement for women's liberation. She'll tell you more about that. For One Law for All, a very important group in the UK against Sharia law, which is actually in use in the UK. And a co-founder of the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain in the UK. And she hosts a weekly TV program in Persian and English called Bread and Roses. She serves on many boards in the UK and internationally, including the Raif Badawi Foundation for Freedom. She's a National Secular Society Honorary Associate, a patron of London Black Atheists and Pink Triangle Trust, Humanist Laureate at the International Academy of Humanism, and she's a columnist for The Freethinker, which is been going on since the 19th century, a long time periodical there. Maryam and the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain were featured in a 2016 film by Dia Khan called Islam's Non-Believers. She was awarded the 2016 International Secularism Laïcité Prize from the Comité Laïcité République, and she was honored by the National Secular Society for her campaigning work defending free speech at universities, despite attempts at barring her by student unions or Islamic society efforts to intimidate and cancel her talks. She was also awarded Atheist of the Year by the Kazimierz, I'm going to mispronounce this, Lisinski, Journalist of the Year at the Dodds Women in Public Life Awards, Secularist of the Year Award by the National Secular Society. She's been received the Julia B. Friedman Humanitarian Award, among many other recognitions. She's done a lot of work on refugees. This summer, Maryam organized the largest gathering of ex-Muslims in history, which Jan and I were proud to be at London and which FFRF helped to co-sponsor. She has led many, many, many protests and founded Iran Solidarity. She's helped launch the Manifesto for a Free and Secular Middle East and North Africa. And she has spoken and written many articles on secularism, free expression, including an essay entitled "When the Hezbollah Came to My School." It's in 50 Voices of Disbelief, Why We Are Atheists. And now, she will be named the 2017 Henry Zumach Freedom from Fundamentalist Religion recipient, and she's here. He is here to give her a plaque and her $10,000 award prize, and we are very grateful to the benefactor, Hank Zumach.
Maryam. Maryam, all I can express is the great admiration and respect I have for you. And I thank you. Here is the plaque for the award.
I don't have my face on it, but I love it.
And if she wants to put a face on it, there is a check for $10,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful honor, especially coming from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I do have a PowerPoint. Yes, lovely. It's coming up. Well, again, thank you very, very much. This is really a wonderful honor, especially coming from people like yourselves who are activists, who have been changing the world. The Freedom from Religion Foundation, Dan Barker, Annie Laura Gaylor, people who I admire greatly. So I can't tell you how grateful I am. I do honestly, though, feel that it's not very well deserved, especially when I think of all the innumerable people across the world who've said no to religious fundamentalism, the religious right, particularly people who live in theocracies and are doing so at great risk, and the many unsung heroes who have died fighting against religion's encroachment in the public space. I think of people like those who are buried in mass graves in the Khavaran, Iran. It's called the place of the damned by the Iranian regime. And thousands upon thousands of people were executed in one bloody summer during the 80s in Iran. And many of them were killed after 5-minute trials. Some of them were asked only one question: do you believe in God? And when they said no, they were taken out and shot. And their families were even made to pay for the bullets that were used to kill them. I think of Katya, and this is pictures of mothers going to this place of the damned, showering it with flowers and remembering and commemorating the many who were killed there. I think of others slaughtered, generations slaughtered actually, by the religious right, by the Islamists. In Algeria, for example, the thousands upon thousands killed by what the Algerians call the green fascists. And as you know, green is the color of Islam, and the Islamists are fascists. One of them is Katya. She was a 17-year-old student. The Islamists demanded that she wear a headscarf. She refused to do so, and they assassinated her on the spot. Of course, we know the Bangladeshi bloggers like the wonderful Avijit Roy. And I don't know if you've heard of the 17-year-old Yemeni called Omar Mohammad Batawil. He identified as an atheist. He used to criticize Islam on Facebook, was threatened as a result. And one day he was abducted from the front of it, from his home, in front of his home, and he was murdered. And just to show what a wonderful man he was, there's a quote of his on Facebook, which he wrote. He said, "They accuse me of atheism. Oh, you people, I see God in the flowers, and you see him in the graveyards. This is the difference between me and you." And for me, when I think of these people, the fallen, it brings to mind the Les Miserables song, you know, empty chairs at empty tables. I'm sure you all know that song, because it really does describe how I feel. It's, you know, it goes, "Oh, my friends, forgive me that I live and you are gone. There's a grief that can't be spoken, and the pain goes on and on. Phantom faces at the window, phantom shadows on the floor, empty chairs at empty tables where my friends will sing no more." I do often feel that I'm very lucky to be alive, and even if, you know, my 11-year-old will ask me, he actually asked me before I flew to this conference whether, you know, he said, "Mommy, will you be assassinated?" And I said, "I'm going to the US, for goodness sakes, you know, I'm not going to Raqqa, Syria." But, you know, it is something that I think a lot of us feel that we're lucky to be alive. I feel lucky to have a supportive partner, lucky to have parents who got my sister and I out of Iran. I'm lucky that I live in a secularized society, to some extent Britain has a long way to still go, where I'm relatively safe. And of course, parents who, even though they are believers, love me more than they love religion and the Quran and religious dogma, which is how it should be, but we know that's not necessarily the case for a lot of young people, not just living in the West, but across the world. And to be honest, the fact that I am alive weighs very heavily on me. And I feel this great burden of responsibility, so much so that I sometimes feel that if I don't speak, it would be very difficult to breathe. So in many ways, and like many people, I speak because I have no choice. And I know this is so true for so many people who are coming out as atheists under very difficult circumstances in the Middle East and North Africa, in South Asia, many young people, thanks in large part to the internet and social media. I think what we're seeing now, the tsunami of atheism really, is a result of social media and the access it's given. And social media and the internet are doing to Islam what the printing press has done to Christianity. I think for many of us, we feel that, well, we are all eventually going to die, aren't we? But many of us prefer to do it standing. And we make no apologies. I have said it many times before, that when you are killed, when you can be killed for leaving Islam, for criticizing Islam, then you need to do it publicly, loudly, and proudly. You need to celebrate blasphemy and apostasy when it is illegal, because these are important forms of resistance. I have no problem calling myself an atheist. When 16-year-olds are being hung in city squares for acts incompatible with chastity, and gay men are being thrown off of buildings because of Sharia justice, well, then criticism of religion and the religious right and religion's role in power becomes a historical task and necessity. And this challenge takes place in many different ways. For example, I know you must have heard of the unveiling movement in Iran, where women, even though it is compulsory to be veiled, even though it is punishable by fines and up to 2 months in prison, women are unveiling as a way of challenging the veiling laws. And men are veiling as well in solidarity with women, saying, look how stupid it looks to be veiled. And it looks even stupider when men are veiled. And there's lots of reflections of this resistance against the veil. I don't know if you saw this wonderful picture, for example, where you see a woman removing the black, mobile prison, and a burst of color coming out from under her, and that represents who she is. For women who fled into liberated territories that are run by Kurdish fighters. Here's another wonderful picture of a Kurdish woman fighter tearing down a sign that had been set up by Daesh or ISIS, telling women how they need to dress, which is basically, completely invisible and not to be seen or heard. And I think under these circumstances, especially given the fact that the burqa and the niqab are the flag of the Islamist movement, it's important to be able to criticize the veil. And also, particularly when you think of the veil, very often it's promoted, the propaganda is that it's liberatory and empowering. Oh, it feels so good to be not seen and not heard, and to be invisible and walk around in a mobile prison. It's really lovely. So given that propaganda, the reality is that women and females are seen to be the source of fitnah and chaos in society, and that's why they need to be covered up. And that's why, as a challenge to that, nude protest, not an objectified nudity, not a nudity that's commodified, but one that is in the hands of women as a form of political protest, can be hugely empowering and an important challenge to the Islamist movement. So I've been involved in nude protests, and here's one in Paris with it's with the Egyptian blogger Alia Majd al-Mahdi, who had to flee Egypt after she posted a nude photo of herself as a scream against misogyny and sexism by Islam and the Islamists. And of course, Amina Saboui, who's a Tunisian topless activist as well, who was threatened after posting topless photos of herself. And in the picture, I've basically cut out the Allah from the Iranian flag and put something much more worthy in its place. Another form of protest has been eat-ins. Eat-ins during Ramadan. All we hear is about happy Ramadan, how lovely Ramadan is. Let's all celebrate Ramadan. Well, Ramadan is a bloody bleak month for a lot of people because you're forced to not eat, you're forced to not drink, you can be arrested and beaten and flogged if you do, and if you're caught. And it's a very, very difficult time for a lot of people who just don't want to fast. And of course, people have a right to fast. But a lot of us don't want to fast, and we should also have that right. And so we have eat-ins in front of embassies where it's illegal, drinking wine and pork sausage rolls. I know, it's so distasteful. I'm sorry, it's awful. And of course, we went to lots of embassies last year. We did it this year as well, and it was funny because the only embassy that called the police was the Iranian embassy. And I asked the police, well, what did they say? There are people eating outside our embassy. Save us, you know. And we actually, at the Pakistani embassy, there's a picture right on the top. I don't know what it is of yours. My maths is really bad, but it was... He came out, and he had done Friday prayers at the embassy, and he came out and thought we were just regular people, and he was trying to be, you know how when they're very sensible because they think you're not Muslim or ex-Muslim, and they're trying to show how tolerant they are. Oh, well, yes, you know, we have a right to fast and all of this stuff. And then the minute we said we're ex-Muslims, he said, oh, you should have told me you're ex-Muslims. I wouldn't have wasted my breath on you. And he marched off into the embassy. So, it may seem funny or silly, but they are important ways of resisting and challenging the Islamists and the religious right. It's something that's been done by young people in Morocco, in Tunisia, and Algeria, and many of them have been beaten and arrested. And so it's something that we think is important to do to show solidarity. Annie and Dan had mentioned Bread and Roses, a program that's broadcast into Iran via illegal satellite dishes. And it was, in fact, us drinking wine on the show in solidarity with people who are defying the fast, which the Iranian regime got angry about and called us immoral and corrupt. So this is all various. I'm just trying to give you some examples of the various forms of resistance. Another thing that we did was ex-Muslim because hashtag. And we thought we'd started just to see why people have left Islam, to give an opportunity for people to say it, because so many people are in the closet, they're frightened, they're fearful. And we didn't expect more than a few hundred responses, but it actually went viral in 24 hours. We had 120,000 tweets from 65 countries. It was very, very moving. A lot of people said they sat behind their computers and cried because it was the first time that they had come out. Even though it's on the internet, even though it's anonymous, there's still so much fear around it. There were Muslims who also showed solidarity with us, but a lot of them hid their faces because of fear of the backlash. And here's a few funny, sad, moving that I wanted to show you. One was ex-Muslim because I'm a woman. Makes perfect sense. Ex-Muslim because bacon. Ex-Muslims because no 72 virgins for me. Ex-Muslim because Islam's the only religion that has its very own phobia. You know, one is art, the other's a hate crime. Ex-Muslim because my own mother told me I should be killed because I didn't believe the same things she did. Ex-Muslim because my dad, the sheikh, said, there's no such thing as rape and marriage in Islam, you're a liar, when I'd asked him to tell the man he'd married me off to at 17 to stop raping me, my own dad. And this is a film Dia Khan made called Islam's Believers. It was shown on ITV. It's one of the most important films about our movement because it's gone into the public space in a way that it hadn't before. So I want to show you a very short clip of this.
There's a battle going on in Muslim communities in Britain and across the Islamic world. A hidden struggle between religious fundamentalists and a group of people who are heading in the opposite direction. They are ex-Muslims, people who are leaving Islam entirely. They are forced to live in the shadows.
They locked me in the house and they hit me. I don't think it would be that hard for them to kill me.
I have 4 head stabs, like machete wounds on my head.
You are going to get shunned. You are going to get mistreated.
I found an underground resistance movement who defy fundamentalists here and across the Islamic world.
Internet and social media is our battleground. Our numbers are growing each and every day.
Just because we're silent doesn't mean we don't exist.
The hellfire is waiting for anyone who is rejecting Allah and His Messenger. Moreover, their families, they should not continue having any kind of relationship with them.
This is a time bomb of young people who are being traumatized, really. One of the things we did is we joined Pride, Gay Pride in London, and we did. Some of us were topless. We were body painted by the award-winning body painter Victoria Guggenheim. We had, flags of countries that execute LGBT, and the aim of our involvement was to say, one, that there are 15 countries which execute LGBT, if you include Daesh-held territories, and to show the links with blasphemy and apostasy, and also to come out in a way that many people hadn't before. So if you see one of our activists who organized the Pride, he had the Chechnya flag on his ass, which is exactly where it should be. Particularly since Chechnya's president had said that they wanted to eliminate gay people by the beginning of Ramadan. So that was one of the focuses of our event. Of course, the minute we got there, the police converged on us because people had been offended by our placards. I think they were particularly offended about the placard, Allah is gay. And, we talked to the police about, there are millions of signs saying Jesus is gay and Jesus has 2 dads, and making fun of the Pope and on and on and on. But the minute you talk about Islam, you've got the police converging on you. So they did try to take our placards and they did say it was illegal and this and that, but you're not going to mess with us. So they couldn't take it off us. And we marched anyway. And it was a wonderful march, yeah. Oh, here's the Allah is gay. It had fuck Islamophobia, make LGBT rights universal, where apostates get used to it, and that sort of thing. And now, obviously, as expected, the Muslim leaders complained. They asked for an apology, which we are not giving. And they said that our placards were Islamophobic. They complained to Pride. And, first of all, they're not Muslim leaders. It's interesting how anyone who's regressive and reactionary suddenly becomes a Muslim leader and we all have to listen to them. They're heads of the East London Mosque. They were incensed because one of our placards said East London Mosque incites the murder of LGBT, and it does. And that's what they're calling Islamophobic. And again, you know, the way things are phrased just shows how much we live in a world where cultural relativism reigns supreme. And every homophobe and reactionary can say that they're a Muslim leader and we all have to listen to them. I mean, this East London Mosque is a center of homophobia. It's had spot the fag contests. It's invited preachers that have called for the death of apostates and blasphemers, and they want us to apologize. I don't think so. So Jesus and Mo, I'm sure you've heard of them. Oh, this is, sorry, I missed a slide. This is what Pride in London wrote when they complained against us. They said, if anyone taking part in our parade makes someone feel ostracized, discriminated against, or humiliated, then they're undermining the principles on which we exist. And they said they won't tolerate any discrimination of any kind, and that they won't tolerate Islamophobia. And now, again, that's very interesting because we had Muslims march with us, and our placards were against racism. Most of the people marching were migrants and people from Muslim backgrounds and minority backgrounds. And we were very clear that our placards were against Islam, against Islamism, against Islamic homophobia, and against racism. But again, if you see how it's often conflated and mixed up with each other, and it's always to the benefit of the reactionaries and to the disadvantage of us. So they are assessing whether they will allow us again next year, and we've told them that we don't need their permission to march for LGBT rights. We will march nonetheless. But Jesus and Mo had a great cartoon about what happened, and Jesus says, oh dear, people were carrying disrespectful banners at Gay Pride again. And Muhammad says, what did they say? So Jesus says, Jesus has two fathers. Haha, well, that's kind of true, says Muhammad. And Jesus is gay. Oh, just don't have, you just have to suck it up. It doesn't mean anything nasty by it. And then Jesus says, yeah, and there were also some that said Allah is gay and fuck Islamic homophobia. And Muhammad says, oh, those hate-filled homos must be stopped. And it's a perfect cartoon about the double standards, and it's exactly something we face all the time. It's fine to say Jesus is gay, it's fine to criticize Christianity, but if you criticize Islam, you are a Nazi. And this is one of the things C.J. Whirlman, you've heard of him? Anyway, he's put ex-Muslims in quotes. I'm not sure why. He thinks maybe we are faking it. He says ex-Muslims not only adopt the same tactics as Nazis, they're also supported by Nazis and white supremacists. And again, I'm not sure how many Nazis were marching for LGBT rights. I didn't see them. And also, the same tactics, we held placards for people's rights. I think they did that in the feminist movement. I think they did that in the civil rights movement against segregation. I think that's basically what lots of people do when they're fighting for people's rights. Again, people like C.J. Whirlman, they want the world for themselves, equal rights, LGBT rights, for people who look like them, but not for the rest of us. For minorities, we are meant to accept what we get by the regressives in our communities and live within the confines of Islam. And I know you might have seen this incident in Goldsmiths when I was speaking there. The Islamic Society that has invited hate preachers was upset that I was speaking there. They thought I would violate their safe spaces. And they tried to cancel their talk, they threatened people, and on and on and on. The videos are online now. But the Feminist Society and the LGBT Society issued a statement of solidarity with the Islamic Society against me, saying that they're very upset that a known Islamophobe was invited to the university. And again, the racism, in fact, of assuming that there is no dissent, no class politics, no social and political movements within minority communities, and that anyone who opposes those in power and the religious right are Islamophobes and racists. it does anger me to think that they look at us in the same way that the Islamists look at us. They see dissent through the eyes of our fascists, and they vilify this dissent. You know, the reality is that it's not all about demographics. It's about people's politics and their choices. You've got professors at universities saying ex-Muslims and other native informants, you know, because we criticize religion in the way that you criticize religion, we are suddenly coconuts and Uncle Toms and linked in with the neocons and the Christian right. I mean, the Islamists are our religious right. So if anything, the people they're defending are the ones that are listed up there, not us. And it reminds me of, you know, the fact that whatever happens, we're always to blame. The Islamists are never to blame. There's always an excuse for why they have to kill people and decapitate people. Poor things. You know, they feel desperate. They're upset about US imperialism. Oh, they faced racism. Well, we've all faced racism. We've all faced imperialism. A lot of us have, from minority communities. We've faced injustice and poverty. We don't tend to decapitate people, though, do we? You know, I think enough excuses for them, and stop blaming the victims. You know, it does remind me, sometimes we're like the woman who's been raped. It's the length of her skirt that must have been the problem, not the rapist. And very, very often you see that sort of blaming the victim by Islamists and Islam itself as well. You see it in billboards on the hijab. If you're not veiled, you've got flies around you. You know, no one can protect you. There's this ad which says, sister, you should be like an onion, because the onion has so many layers, and you never see it rotting like these potatoes with very thin skins. And again, you know, we see it with Charlie Hebdo. I mean, there's been many times where I've got death threats, and I've been told, well, what do you expect? You know, you shouldn't have been talking about these things. Well, I'm sorry, I expect not to be killed for saying things and talking about religion and criticizing it. And we see that with Charlie Hebdo as well. If only they hadn't drawn that cartoon. They shouldn't have been killed, but. There's always some but, as if offense is more important and more offensive than murder. And of course, we know racism exists, it kills, but I don't think ex-Muslims need a lesson in racism. We live it all the time, and particularly many of our family members remain Muslims, and racists can't really tell us apart anyway. You know, they want to attack a Muslim, they get a poor Sikh. They don't even know the difference between Muslims, Sikhs. You know, we all look the same to them. So obviously, you know, and these two are not the same thing. It's been conflated so that we have to keep explaining that criticizing Islam is not racism, criticizing Islamism is not racism. I think we must not excuse fundamentalism because of racism, and we mustn't excuse racism because of fundamentalism. I think it's important to fight on several fronts. You know, we fight for LGBT rights, we fight for women's rights, we fight for atheist rights. We are complex people, and we fight on very many fronts. So we can fight against religion, including Islam. We can fight against the religious right, which is the Islamists, the Christian right. Look what the Hindu right is doing in India. They are killing people for eating beef, for goodness sakes. The Buddhist right, we know what they're doing to the Rohingya Muslims there. The Jewish right, what they're doing in the Palestinian territories. We have to fight them, but at the same time adamantly defend laïcité, the separation of religion from the state, citizenship rights, irrespective of people's beliefs, and human rights, you know, irrespective of our migration status, where we come from, what our backgrounds are, and so on and so forth. The charges of Islamophobia, in my opinion, are de facto blasphemy and apostasy laws. There, they kill us, they imprison us. They don't say that their safe spaces have been hurt. They call us apostates and blasphemers and send us to the gallows. Here, they cry Islamophobia with the support of many people who are supposed to be on our side. And it's a way of silencing dissent and criticism. We have to criticize Islam because our lives depend on it. And I want to end now with a few minutes from Muhammad al-Khadra. He spoke at the Free Thinkers conference that Annie and Dan were at, the largest gathering of ex-Muslims in Britain, and he just blew us away. He is a star. He's someone we should all know. He has started the Jordanian Atheists in a country where you can, not legally, but be killed by mobs for being an atheist, and he's publicly shown his face there. So I want to end with his words.
I'm Muhammad al-Khadra. One day, 4 years ago, I was becoming more and more Salafi, and I was believing in the caliphate and having that caliphate to be the greatest Arab nation or the Muslim nation back again. And then this man, Richard Dawkins, I found a YouTube video of him, and then I began to learn and learn more. And then I woke up. To be able to wake someone up, that's what stands for being out loud and proud. Because if he wasn't, I wouldn't be here. And I'm sure that there's the same situation for a lot of people here. To be out loud and proud is to give a chance to people who are in the closet to come out. You give a chance to people to think, how do I know what I know? How do I know that the earth is round? How do I know about the theory of evolution? There's someone that says, okay, it's creationism. I need to find out. This debate and this reasoning with people, you can't have that while you're hiding. And I know that a lot of people here are open, but to be open in the Middle East is something else. In August 2016, Nahid Hattar, he's a journalist, he's an atheist, he published a cartoon about the god of ISIS. It showed that this is what jihadists look for in heaven. The whole country was calling for the government to get him. And they did. And after getting him, while he was going up to the stairs in the courthouse, he was shot to death on the 25th of September last year. This is the con, and this is the major con for being out. Death is what we're fearing. But the problem is, and what's the saddest thing I have seen these 2 days, that Maryam said that the tsunami is coming in the opening of this conference. Yes, the tsunami is coming, but it's coming from us, from the ones who are on the front line. But here, you guys are losing. Yesterday at night, I had a small paper that says, awesome without Allah. And we left here, and we went to have dinner. An ex-Muslim girl with me at the conference grabbed me and took away that sign. And I asked her why. She said, because there are Muslims next to us. We might get in trouble. This is in London. This is in the 21st century. This is in the free world. Where are your priorities? While we die there, you're all thinking about Islamophobia. You're all thinking about not going. Being out is being able to speak and to be who you are. So if we think about which is better, the cons or the pros, I will definitely pick the pros. Why? Because you can never live with yourself. Anybody, you can't live with yourself if you just choose to be quiet. And this is what you are doing. You're being quiet while we're not. And look what we are having to give and what you are giving. You're giving your freedom and we're giving our life. Don't give up the things that you have. You have freedom of speech. Use it. You have the freedom to offend.
Use it. Thank you.